Hi guys, Peter McKenzie here, Rincon Property Management. We are making a real estate market update today because we are seeing some real changes in the rental real estate market here in Ventura County. So as everybody knows, the real estate market in general is changing. So we're seeing more price reductions. Interest rates are going up quite a bit. Just the other day, they raised them 75 basis points. So those things have a real impact on the rental market. And let's just get right into it, what we're seeing, because the reason this is important is because if we don't adjust how we try to rent the properties out with factoring in the changes, it leads to longer vacancy times, which leads to less money in our clients' pockets in the form of rent. So the market is slowing. Everybody understands that. Here's how it's affecting the rental market. So as the interest rates increase, it is softening the sales market, meaning if a seller was considering selling, it was kind of a no-brainer decision because you literally could ask anything you want and somebody would offer you asking price or over asking price. Well, now that the interest rates have climbed up, those things aren't happening and you're seeing a lot of price reductions, which is causing some sellers to no longer want to sell. So instead of selling, their only other option, if they're being transferred somewhere else or they inherited a house from a family member, is to rent. So what we're seeing is a pretty remarkable increase in rental inventory. We monitor how many available rental units there are in Ventura. And a couple months ago during the summer months, there was around 30. And if you look now, it's closer to 80 to 100. So has doubled the number of available units. Well, the impact that has on supply and demand is pretty drastic. And what it means is there's less competition for available rental properties. So now the people that are looking to rent properties have double the options, which means they can be pickier. There's just not enough of them to fill all the rental units as quickly as we had in the past, which translates into two things: some price reductions and longer vacancy times. So in our company, we track a lot of things, but one of the things we track is when we release a property for showings to when we have a signed lease, we track that interval of time. And a month ago or so, we were right around 3 to 4 days. So we release it for showings, 3 to 4 days later, we have a signed lease. Today, we're pushing 15 days. And honestly, I anticipate it getting longer because of the increased supply that we have in the market. So that makes a real impact on our ability to rent the properties quickly. But this is not the end of the world. There are things that we are actively doing, and there are things that you can do if you're managing the property on your own to get it rented. Here is what we're doing and maybe what you should consider doing too. So for one, we are making sure that the listing has the most exposure. So a lot of our competitors aren't posting on Zillow anymore because maybe about a year ago, Zillow started charging management companies to use their service. Well, a lot of our competitors decided not to pay Zillow. That's going to have a real impact now when we have oversupply of rental properties and not enough exposure. If you're not on the biggest rental real estate website in general, that's going to have a real impact. So make sure you're advertising everywhere. The other thing you can do is don't be as aggressive with your rent price. So if in July, your 3-bedroom, 2-bath house was renting for $3,800 a month, you're probably not gonna get $3,800 a month today. You're gonna have to bring down the price. So we are seeing price reductions. We track those as well. We're seeing anywhere from 3 to 5% reductions in price. Bring the price down to $3,500, $3,600, and it will increase the chances of it getting rented. Now, on certain rare occasions, we've seen even incentives out there where people will give an incentive to rent the property, whether it's like, a couple $100 or, a week's free rent or anything that you can do to get the property rented quickly. And the reason that's important is because in the rental business, time is money. Our average rents are $3,500 for a 3-bedroom, 2 house or so. Every day it's not rented is over $100. So if you're giving a rent credit of $400, that's only 4 days rent. And if you beat out the other property that you're competing against, that starts to make a lot of financial sense. So price decreases, you're going to start seeing incentives that are going to be more common in the market. Those are a couple of things that you can do to get the property rented. In addition to make sure you're taking good photos, make sure you have a 3D scan, make sure you remove all resistance to people that want to look at the property. Make it extremely easy for them to schedule a showing. Do it at a time that is ideal for them and not you. And those are some things little tips that'll get the property rented quicker. But that's not the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is to document the changes that we're seeing. Let's talk more about price decrease. So we analyze all of the numbers related to leasing in our business. And the principle is that the open market sets the rent price. And sometimes we fight the open market and we try to get more than the open market allows. And there are some landlords who think a strategy is to be under market rate rents. And that's how they rent their properties quicker or keep them occupied longer. When you set the rent price, if we're gonna err one side on higher versus lower, we always err a little bit higher and then we adjust down. The reason being, it's very difficult to err on the low side and say, oh, we made a mistake, it was too low, we're gonna raise the rent. That doesn't really fly with consumers. But if the rent's $3,000 and you decide to list it for $3,100 to see what the response of the market is gonna be, that's okay, and we frequently do that. If we don't get the response we need, which in our business, we know that if we post your average 3-bedroom, 2-bath house or condo, we're gonna see roughly 50 to 70 inquiries in a week. If we post a property and then every Monday morning we sit down and look at how all of our listings are performing and we see, say, 10 inquiries, that's the open market saying to us that we don't like the price you set. So then we take that information and we lower the price. Generally in $100 increments. So if we're at $3,100, we'll lower it to $3,000. And then we'll leave it for another week, and then we'll come Monday morning and sit down and analyze the numbers again. And usually when we cross that threshold of what the open market thinks the rent should be, you will see a pretty well-defined spike in inquiries. And once we see it shoot up to 50 to 70, we know we got the price right. And then it's just a matter of time before the property gets rented. Because if we have 50 to 70 inquiries, we know we're gonna have 6 to 10 requests for showings, which is gonna lead to not all of them actually go through, maybe 5 to 7 showings. And then from there, we're gonna get 1 to 3 applications, and we usually rent the property from those applications that we receive. So we have it down to a science. Why that's important for you is if you're doing this on your own, you need to aggressively lower the price, but do it in steps. Don't lower the price $1,000, because the other side of this is you don't want to leave money on the table. So if you rent it too far below market, it has a real impact to your bottom line. Let's talk about the real cost of not lowering the price. So let's say that you have a $3,000 market rate rent property and you decide that you want to get $4,000 for rent, which sounds a little aggressive, but I see it in the market all the time. The open market is generally not going to pay more for something than the market determines the price is going to be. So this is very similar to, you go to the grocery store and a gallon of milk costs $5. Are you going to pay $10 for a gallon of milk? Nobody in their right mind would do that willingly. Same thing applies in the rental market. So if you get stuck on your $4,000 price and you say, I'm not lowering it, I'm going to get my $4,000 price, and it sits for 1 month, that's $4,000 you lost. If it sits for 2 months, that's $8,000 you lost. And you see where we're going with this. You let the open market beat you up enough, you're going to be losing quite a bit of money. If you wait all year, you're going to be out $48,000. A better strategy is to lower the rent by $100 increments, or if you wanted to be really aggressive, $200 increments, but let's just say 100, and then get the property rented. So if you lowered it 100, you literally gave up $1,200 in rent in the form of that price concession, but you collected $3,900 in rent. Much more than if you sat on the property for 30 days and lost $4,000. So would you rather lower the price $100 and lose $1,200 over 12 months, or not lower the price and lose $4,000 per month? That's how you have to look at rent reductions. One other note on this is, if you reduce the rent, say $100, $200, you can always make up for it at lease renewal. That's when you know you have a good tenant, if it's working out for both parties. then raise the rent then. Now, raising the rent is subject to a lot of different factors. Some properties are subject to rent control. Some cities have more localized rent control, so don't just blanket raise your rent. Check the law, make sure you're legally able to raise the rent before you do that. If you work with a professional company like ours, we obviously keep you compliant with that and make sure that we're following all the rules, which unfortunately the rules are getting more and more onerous because they just keep passing more and more laws. Hope that makes sense. Okay, to recap, I know we've got a lot of information here. The market's changing, properties are taking longer to rent, and price is coming down. We're seeing on average 3 to 5% reduction in rent prices. The key principles are don't fight the open market with price, adjust your prices down, get the property rented, increase the rent at renewal time, and you're gonna be just fine. Now, bigger macroeconomic picture, when an economy goes into a recession, it reduces the number of homeowners that either are gonna be created or homeowners are gonna no longer be homeowners if they lose the house, can't afford it, things like that. In general terms, during recessions, it creates more renters. And when you have more renters, there's more demand for rental properties. Now, we are seeing a short-term correction in the form of we dumped more rental supply than we had a month ago, which is causing a rent decrease. But that will normalize out if we continue to have these economic conditions, and it will return to where the demand is more than the supply. Obviously, nobody has a crystal ball. That's what we saw in 2008, and that's what we're anticipating seeing now too. Obviously, this is not the same as 2008. Please don't think that I'm advocating for that, because that's an apples to oranges comparison. But general picture, if we stay in a recession for any length of time, it's usually good for the rental market because there's more demand, which will then lead to increased rent prices, decreased vacancy times, and all those things. Hope this information was helpful for you. If you liked it, please subscribe to our YouTube page. We provide a lot of content for our listeners and our clients. It's our obligation to keep you guys informed so you can make the best decisions possible when it comes to your rental real estate. Again, thanks for listening, and please tune in for more updates as they come.